Jax Callan leaned back in the worn captain's chair of the Nomad's Compass, his trusty but weathered freighter drifting through the silent expanse of the Asterios sector. The ship was on a routine run, ferrying goods between outposts along the sector's fringes. It was quiet, too quiet, even for the void. Then it came, a piercing distress signal that jolted him upright. His dashboard lit up with an unfamiliar code, the message distorted but urgent. Critical failure. Life support compromised. Requesting assistance. Jax squinted at the holographic display. The signal's origin was a massive alien ship, the Serenity's Jewel, broadcasting from coordinates less than an hour away. He hesitated for a moment, knowing the dangers of alien encounters, but the desperation in the message left no room for doubt. "Guess we're playing hero today," he muttered, engaging the ship's thrusters. As the Nomad's Compass approached, the alien vessel loomed into view, a shimmering, elegant starship adorned with intricate carvings and glowing filigree, now listing heavily, its hull scarred by some unseen calamity. Jax maneuvered closer, hailing the vessel. "This is Captain Jax Callan of the freighter Nomad's Compass. I'm responding to your distress signal. Can anyone hear me?" Static crackled, then a soft, melodic voice answered. "This is Princess Lyora of the Illyrian ship Serenity's Jewel. We are grateful for your aid. Our systems are failing. Life support is at critical levels. Hang tight." "I'm boarding now," Jax replied, grabbing his toolkit and heading for the airlock. Jax stepped into the Serenity's Jewel, his boots clanking against its polished gold-veined floors. The air was thin and cold, and the ship's emergency lights cast a dim, eerie glow. The grandeur of the vessel was evident despite the damage. Crystalline panels shimmered faintly, and the walls were adorned with intricate alien murals. Following a map transmitted to his visor, Jax navigated toward the bridge. Along the way, he caught glimpses of treasures. Ornate statues, glowing orbs, and artifacts that seemed to hum with energy. But what struck him most was the silence, a stark contrast to the ship's beauty. Finally, he reached the bridge, where a group of alien figures huddled near a malfunctioning console. At their center stood Princess Lyora, a vision of otherworldly grace with luminescent blue skin and flowing silver hair. Her golden eyes met his as he entered, a mix of relief and exhaustion evident in her gaze. "You're human," she said, her voice soft but firm, "and you came to help." "Name's Jax. Let's skip the formalities and get to work," he replied, scanning the console. "Your life support's on its last legs and your propulsion system's fried. I can patch the air systems, but I'll need supplies from my ship." "Whatever you need," Lyora said, gesturing to the guards flanking her. "Assist him." As Jax worked, he learned bits and pieces about the ship. The Serenity's Jewel was a treasure vessel carrying rare artifacts from Alyria, piloted by a crew of diplomats and courtiers. An unexpected meteor storm had crippled the ship, leaving it stranded. Hours passed as Jax repaired the life support systems, his hands deftly connecting wires and recalibrating controls. Sweat dripped from his brow, but he pressed on, spurred by the knowledge that every second counted. When the air systems roared back to life, a collective sigh of relief swept through the bridge. Lyora approached Jax, her expression softening. "You've saved us," she said. "Our gratitude is beyond measure." Jax shrugged, a small smile tugging at his lips. All in a day's work. But as he looked around the room at the treasures glinting faintly in the renewed light and the ethereal figures watching him with a mix of awe and curiosity, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something far greater. With life support stabilized, the crew of the Serenity's Jewel guided Jax through the ship. The corridors glimmered with an ethereal light, and every room seemed to unveil new wonders. Artifacts from Alyria and beyond adorned the walls. Ancient tablets with glowing scripts, crystalline sculptures radiating soft hums, and orbs that shimmered with swirling colors. Jax couldn't help but whistle as he passed a row of gilded statues. "This is what you call cargo. I've seen museums with less." Princess Lyora walked beside him, her golden eyes observing him curiously. "These treasures represent centuries of Illyrian history. Each piece is a symbol of our culture's achievements." "And what happens if some space pirates decide they want a piece of your history?" Jax asked. Lyora's expression darkened. "That's a risk we always carry. Our mission is to share our legacy with allied worlds, to foster peace through understanding. But without your help, it would have all been lost. They stopped in a chamber lined with crystalline pedestals, each holding a different artifact. At the center of the room rested a massive sphere, its surface pulsing faintly. Leora gestured to it. This is the Crown of Suns, one of Alyria's most sacred artifacts. It powers the shielding systems of our cities. Jax raised an eyebrow. And you're just casually carrying it around in deep space? It was en route to a summit where it would be shared with our allies. A gesture of trust, Leora explained. But trust can be dangerous. Jax smirked. So can carrying a ship full of treasure without decent hull plating. Her laugh was soft but genuine, a sound that lingered in the air. Perhaps, but you've proven that some can still be trusted. As repairs to the Serenity's jewel continued, alarms blared suddenly through the ship. The lights dimmed and the calm air turned tense. Jax looked at Leora, who was already issuing orders to her crew. "What's happening?" Jax asked, gripping the edge of a console as the ship shuddered. "Pirates," Leora said, her voice steady but sharp. "They must have picked up our distress signal." The bridge's view screen displayed a fleet of sleek, heavily armed vessels bearing down on them. The pirates opened fire, their plasma bolts hammering against the Serenity's jewel. The shields flickered but held, thanks to Jax's earlier repairs. Jax assessed the situation, his mind racing. "You've got weapons, right?" Leora hesitated. "Minimal defenses. This is a diplomatic vessel, not a warship." "Then we'll have to get creative," Jax said, his tone firm. "Divert power to shields and engines. Let me handle the rest." With Leora's approval, Jax sprinted to the engineering bay, where he began reconfiguring systems. "If they want treasure," he muttered, "let's give them a show." As the pirates closed in, Jax activated the ship's decoy system, releasing a cluster of small, glowing drones that mimicked the appearance of valuable artifacts. The pirates, lured by the decoys, split their forces to pursue them. "This buys us time, but not much," Jax said over the comms. "We need to move." Leora's voice crackled through. "Engines are ready, but we're surrounded." Jax grinned. "Not for long." Jax returned to the bridge and took control of the helm. With Leora and the crew watching in tense silence, he piloted the Serenity's jewel through a series of tight maneuvers, weaving between the pirate ships and debris fields. The vessel groaned under the strain, but Jax's skill kept them one step ahead. As they neared a dense asteroid belt, Jax smirked. "Hold on tight." He guided the ship into the belt, using the asteroids as cover while the pirates struggled to keep up. One by one, the pursuing ships collided with the massive rocks, their shields failing under the impact. Finally, the Serenity's jewel broke free, the remaining pirates falling behind as they realized the chase was futile. The crew erupted into cheers, and Leora turned to Jax, her expression a mix of awe and gratitude. "You've done more than save us," she said. "You've given us a chance to reach Alyria safely. I owe you everything." Jax leaned back in the captain's chair, his adrenaline finally subsiding. "Let's just say I have a thing for keeping treasure out of the wrong hands." As the ship steadied, Jax knew this was far from over. The pirates' attack had revealed just how vulnerable the Serenity's jewel was, and how valuable its cargo truly was to the galaxy. The Serenity's jewel emerged from the asteroid belt battered but intact. The crew worked frantically to assess the damage, their relief at escaping the pirates tempered by the realization of how close they had come to disaster. Jax remained on the bridge, coordinating the repairs with a calm efficiency that belied the chaos around him. Princess Leora approached him, her composure strained but resolute. "You've saved us again," she said softly. "But I fear this attack is only the beginning. News of our survival will spread, and more will come for what we carry." Jax nodded, his jaw tightening. "Then we need to make sure you're ready for them." He spent the next hours devising a plan. The Serenity's jewel had defenses, but they were inadequate against the kind of coordinated assault the pirates had unleashed. Jax proposed rerouting power from the less critical systems to reinforce the shields and weapons, turning the vessel into a makeshift warship. "I can get you to Alyria," he told Leora, "but you'll need to hold your own if more of them show up." The Alyrian engineers worked alongside Jax, marveling at his ingenuity. He adapted their advanced but delicate technology with the rough-and-ready pragmatism of a human sailor, creating systems that were crude by their standards but effective. As the ship's defenses were strengthened, Jax turned his attention to the crew. While they were skilled diplomats and scientists, few had combat experience. He took it upon himself to train them, teaching basic tactics and maneuvers. The training sessions were grueling. Jax's approach was direct and unyielding, pushing the crew beyond their limits. Out there, he told them, gesturing to the stars, no one cares about diplomacy. You either fight or you don't make it home. Leora joined the sessions, surprising Jax with her determination. Though she had never held a weapon before, her natural leadership and quick thinking made her a fast learner. You're not bad for a diplomat, Jax said after one particularly intense drill. Leora smirked, wiping sweat from her brow. And you're not bad for a scavenger. Despite the grueling pace, a sense of camaraderie began to form among the crew. They saw Jax not just as a rescuer, but as someone who believed in their survival. The once fractured group began to move with a shared purpose, united by the knowledge that their journey was far from over. 2 days later, as the Serenity's Jewel approached the Alyrian border, the ship's sensors picked up a faint distress signal. Jax frowned as he studied the readings. It's too weak to trace, but it's definitely Alyrian. Leora's expression darkened. It could be another trap. The pirates might be using Alyrian codes to lure us in. Or it could be someone who needs help, Jax countered. Either way, we need to check it out. Reluctantly, Leora agreed. The Serenity's Jewel adjusted its course, following the signal to a barren moon orbiting a dying star. As they descended through the atmosphere, the source of the signal came into view. A small Illyrian scout ship, its hull scorched and its engines offline. Jax and Leora led a team aboard the stranded vessel, weapons drawn. The ship's interior was dark and silent, the air heavy with the scent of scorched metal. They found the crew in the command room, 2 Illyrians, barely alive but clinging to hope. They ambushed us, one of the survivors rasped. Took the cargo, left us to die. Leora's gaze hardened. Who? The survivor coughed, his voice barely audible. The Black Suns, they know about the crown. The name sent a chill through the room. The Black Suns were a notorious band of mercenaries, feared across the galaxy for their ruthlessness. If they were targeting the Serenity's Jewel, it meant their escape from the pirates had drawn more than just attention. It had painted a target on their backs. Jax helped the survivors back to the Serenity's Jewel, while Leora coordinated with her crew to analyze the data from the scout ship. The Illyrian engineers confirmed their worst fears. The Black Suns had intercepted the scout ship while searching for the Serenity's Jewel. They were now on their trail. This isn't just about treasure, Leora said, her voice tight with anger. The Crown of Suns is a symbol of Illyria's unity. If they take it, they'll destroy everything it stands for. Jax leaned against the console, his mind racing. We need to outsmart them. They'll expect us to run, but if we play this right, we can turn the tables. Jax's plan was simple but bold. Using the decoy drones he had modified earlier, the Serenity's Jewel would create a fake signature mimicking the Crown of Suns. They would lure the Black Suns into a trap, then use their newly upgraded defenses to disable their flagship and force a retreat. The crew worked tirelessly to prepare. Jax and Leora spent long hours refining the plan, their bond growing stronger with each shared challenge. Leora admired Jax's resilience and ingenuity, while Jax was drawn to her unwavering determination and sense of duty. When the Black Sun's fleet arrived, the Serenity's Jewel was ready. The decoys drew the mercenaries into a dense asteroid field where Jax had positioned the ship for maximum advantage. As the enemy fleet closed in, the Serenity's Jewel unleashed a barrage of coordinated strikes, using the terrain to its advantage. Velvet explosions lit up the field as the Black Sun's ships fell one by one. The flagship, a monstrous dreadnought, proved more resilient, but Leora took command of the ship's main cannon, firing a precision shot that crippled its engines. The Black Suns, realizing they had been outmaneuvered, retreated, their flagship limping away into the void. The Serenity's Jewel emerged victorious but not unscathed. The ship's hull was scarred and several systems were damaged, but the Crown of Suns remained safe. As the crew celebrated, Jax stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. Leora joined him, her expression a mix of relief and gratitude. You did it, she said softly. You saved us again. We did it, Jax corrected, a small smile tugging at his lips. You're not just diplomats anymore, you're fighters. Leora laughed, a sound that carried a sense of hope. And you're not just a scavenger, you're extraordinary. The bond between them had grown unbreakable, forged in the fires of battle and tempered by trust. But as they set course for Alyria, both knew their journey was far from over. The galaxy was vast, its dangers endless, but together, they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The Serenity's jewel limped into Illyrian space, its hull battered but its spirit unbroken. The Illyrian homeworld loomed ahead, a shimmering sphere of emerald oceans and golden cities suspended in the void. The crew, though exhausted, felt a surge of pride as they approached the planet. For many, this was home. For others, it was a symbol of safety after their harrowing journey. Jax stood on the bridge, watching as Illyria's orbital defenses scanned the ship. He glanced at Princess Leora, who was coordinating with the planetary authorities. Despite her composed demeanor, he could see the weight of recent events etched into her features. "You think we'll get a warm welcome or more trouble?" Jax asked, crossing his arms. Leora gave him a faint smile. "After what we've been through, I'd say we've earned a hero's welcome, but Alyria has its own way of showing gratitude." The ship docked at one of the orbital platforms, and the crew disembarked to raucous cheers. Illyrian diplomats and dignitaries had gathered to greet them, their elegant forms a stark contrast to the battle-worn crew of the Serenity's jewel. Leora was immediately surrounded by advisors, her status as a princess drawing attention. Jax lingered at the edge of the crowd, watching as Leora was whisked away. He felt a pang of detachment, realizing that his role in their journey might now be over. As he turned to head back to the ship, a voice stopped him. "Jax." He looked back to see Leora standing apart from the crowd, her golden eyes fixed on him. She approached, her expression softening. "You're not just a rescuer, you're part of this. Don't disappear now." Before he could respond, a holographic display flared to life in the sky above, showing a somber-faced Illyrian general. "Attention, all planetary forces report to defensive positions. Long-range scans indicate unidentified vessels en route to Alyria. They match the Black Sun's profile." The celebrations were cut short as Alyria braced for the incoming attack. Jax found himself summoned to an emergency council meeting alongside Leora and her senior advisors. The chamber was a dazzling sphere of crystal and light, but the mood was grim. The Black Suns won't stop until they've taken the crown of suns. One advisor said, his voice tense, "Their fleet is too large for us to repel without heavy losses." Leora turned to Jax. "You've faced them before. What would you suggest?" Jax hesitated, aware of the weight of his words. "They're relentless but predictable. They'll focus all their firepower on the prize, the Serenity's jewel. If we can use that to lure them into a trap, we might stand a chance." Another advisor scoffed. "Use the jewel as bait? Are you mad? That ship barely survived the last encounter." "Which is exactly why they'll take the bait," Jax shot back. "They'll think we're vulnerable, but if we set up defensive positions in Illyria's atmosphere and time it right, we can turn the tide." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Leora. She looked at Jax, her gaze steady. "We'll do it, but I'll be aboard the jewel. If we're asking the crew to risk everything again, I won't let them face it alone." Jax's jaw tightened. "Then, I'm staying too." The Serenity's jewel once again became the centerpiece of a desperate gambit. Its crew worked tirelessly to repair the damage from their last battle, guided by Jax's modifications and Illyrian ingenuity. Leora took command of the ship, her presence inspiring the crew to rally despite the odds. As the Black Sun's fleet emerged from hyperspace, the jewel drifted in low orbit over Alyria, its battered hull a tempting target. The pirate ships surged forward, their weapons charging as they closed in on what they believed to be an easy victory. "The lure, hold your fire," Leora ordered, her voice calm despite the tension. The jewel remained motionless, its shields flickering faintly as the pirates approached. From the bridge, Jax monitored the enemy's movements, his hands steady on the controls. "They're falling for it," he said. "Get ready." When the Black Sun's lead ships entered the trap, the Illyrian defenses sprang to life. Hidden platforms embedded in the planet's upper atmosphere unleashed a barrage of plasma fire, cutting through the pirates' formations. The jewel's modified cannons joined the assault, targeting key vessels with precision. Chaos erupted as the Black Sun scrambled to regroup. Jax's strategy had caught them off guard, but the battle was far from over. The Black Sun's flagship, a massive dreadnought bristling with weaponry, pushed through the Alyrian defenses. Its captain, a ruthless mercenary named Torvik, broadcast a chilling message. "Surrender the crown, or I'll reduce Alyria to ashes." Leora's voice cut through the comms. "You'll never take it." The dreadnought fired, its plasma cannons tearing through the jewel's weakened shields. Alarms blared as the ship shook violently, and Jax gritted his teeth. "We need to take that thing down now." Using the jewel's remaining power, Jax and Leora directed a desperate assault on the dreadnought. The crew worked tirelessly, coordinating strikes on its engines and weapon systems. Velka, a pilot who had proven her mettle in earlier skirmishes, led a squadron of Alyrian fighters in daring attacks on the dreadnought's vulnerable points. The tide of battle shifted when Jax implemented his final gambit. He activated a destabilized reactor core from one of the jewel's damaged systems, loading it into a decoy drone. As the drone sped toward the dreadnought, the Black Suns focused their fire on destroying it, unaware of its true purpose. "Now!" Jax shouted. The drone detonated, sending a massive shockwave through the dreadnought's hull. Its engines failed, and its weapon systems went dark. The remaining pirate ships, leaderless and outgunned, began to retreat. Cheers erupted on the jewel's bridge as the Black Suns fled, leaving Alyria victorious. As the smoke cleared, the Serenity's jewel returned to Alyria's surface, its crew hailed as heroes. Jax stood beside Leora as the planet's leaders honored them with a ceremony in the Grand Crystal Plaza. "You could have walked away," Leora said quietly as the crowd cheered. "But you stayed. Why?" Jax met her gaze, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Because I couldn't let you face this alone." Leora's eyes softened, and for a moment, the weight of their shared journey melted away. Together, they had faced impossible odds and emerged stronger. As the ceremony continued, Jax found himself thinking not about the treasures or the accolades, but about the bonds he had forged and the battles yet to come. For now, though, he allowed himself a moment of peace, standing side by side with the woman who had become his equal in courage and resolve. The battle for Alyria had been won, but the scars it left behind were fresh and deep. The Serenity's jewel lay docked at the capital's gleaming port, its hull scorched and patched, a testament to the ferocity of the fight. The Alyrian people celebrated their survival, filling the air with songs and glowing lights that drifted into the twilight skies. Jax wandered through the bustling port, watching the festivities with a quiet sense of satisfaction. Despite the odds, they had prevailed. But the weight of the battle lingered, his thoughts returning to the moments when the jewel's survival had hung by a thread. "Brooding doesn't suit you, Jax," came Leora's voice from behind him. He turned to find her dressed in formal Illyrian attire, a shimmering gown of gold and violet that seemed to radiate light. Her golden eyes held a mixture of exhaustion and gratitude. "The people are alive because of you," she said softly. "Because of us," Jax corrected, his gaze meeting hers. "I just pointed the ship in the right direction. You gave them the courage to fight." Leora stepped closer, her voice lowering. "You're more than just a pilot, Jax. You've proven that again and again." Their moment was interrupted by an urgent summons from the Alyrian Council. The victory, it seemed, had come at a cost they hadn't anticipated. In the council chamber, the mood was grim. The Alyrian councillors, their faces weary, outlined the situation. The Black Sun's retreat had not been a complete defeat. Scouts had tracked their remaining forces, regrouping near a strategic trade route, plotting their next move. Worse, they had stolen valuable data from one of Alyria's satellites, giving them critical insights into the planet's defenses. "They'll return stronger," said General Rail, a grizzled Alyrian strategist. "And next time, they won't aim to disable, they'll destroy." Jax frowned, leaning against the crystalline table. "What's the plan?" The council hesitated before Leora spoke. "We must take the fight to them. If we wait, we'll be defending a fractured position. We have to strike while they're vulnerable." General Rail scoffed. "Our forces are depleted. A counteroffensive would be suicide." "Not if we use the jewel," Jax interjected. "They'll expect us to defend Alyria, not launch an attack. We use the jewel as a decoy again, but this time, we go straight for their command ship. Cut the head off the snake." The room fell silent. Finally, the council nodded in agreement. The plan was dangerous, but it was their best chance to end the threat for good. The crew of the Serenity's Jewel worked tirelessly to prepare. Repairs were expedited, weapons calibrated, and supplies replenished. Jax took charge of the modifications, his human ingenuity blending with Alyrian technology to create new defensive measures. Leora joined him in the engineering bay late one night, her presence a comforting counterbalance to the stress. "Do you ever think about what happens after all this?" she asked, her voice soft. Jax paused, glancing at her. "I try not to. If I start thinking too far ahead, I might lose focus on what's right in front of me." She nodded, understanding. "Still, I hope there's something waiting for us beyond the fight." Jax smiled faintly. "Me too." The Serenity's Jewel entered the Black Sun's territory under cover of a dense asteroid field. The enemy fleet was stationed around their command ship, a colossal dreadnought bristling with weaponry. Jax's plan relied on speed and precision. Get in, disable the command ship, and scatter the fleet. As they approached, the Black Suns detected their presence. Alarms blared, and the enemy ships scrambled into formation. The Jewel weaved through the chaos, its enhanced shields absorbing the initial barrage of fire. "Stay sharp," Jax barked, piloting the Jewel with precision. "We've got one shot at this." Leora coordinated the crew, her calm demeanor a beacon of focus. The ship's modified weapons targeted key enemy vessels, creating a path toward the dreadnought. Reaching the dreadnought, Jax and a small team, including Leora, boarded the massive ship. The interior was a maze of steel and shadows, its corridors echoing with the sounds of distant combat. Their goal was the command center, where the Black Sun's leader Torvik controlled the fleet. Fighting their way through enemy forces, Jax and Leora worked seamlessly together. When they reached the command center, Torvik awaited them, flanked by his elite guards. "You've come a long way to die, human," Torvik sneered. Jax smirked, his blaster aimed steadily. "Funny. I was about to say the same thing." The battle was intense, the confined space amplifying every shot and clash. Torvik proved a formidable opponent, his cybernetic enhancements giving him an edge. But Leora's quick thinking and Jax's resourcefulness turned the tide. Together, they disabled Torvik, ending his reign with a final, decisive blow. With Torvik defeated, the Black Sun's fleet fell into disarray. The Serenity's Jewel unleashed its full firepower, driving the remaining ships into retreat. Alyria was safe. Back on the Jewel, the crew celebrated their victory. Jax stood on the bridge watching the stars shift as they headed home. Leora joined him, her expression a mix of relief and quiet joy. "We did it," she said. "Yeah," Jax replied. "We did." She hesitated, then reached out, taking his hand. "Thank you, Jax, for everything." For the first time, Jax allowed himself to think beyond the fight. He didn't know what the future held, but with Leora at his side, he was ready to face it. Together, they had overcome impossible odds, forging a bond that would carry them through whatever came next. As the Serenity's Jewel sailed toward Alyria, its crew united and its mission fulfilled, Jax realized he had found something far greater than treasure. A purpose, a home, and perhaps even love.